Hello, and welcome to episode 94 of TBR, the To Be Read podcast, where we talk about the books we love and the topics that interest us. I am Patrick Stemp, and as always, I have John L. Monk here with me. How are you, John?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. And Michael had some last-minute business, so he wasn't able to join us this week, but we have Matt Brotherton, who's stepping in for him. How are you doing, Matt?
Doing great.
Thanks for coming back.
I'm glad to be here. Second appearance. Gonna try to make a run for P.T. Hilton's record.
There you go. Is it only number 2?
It is. It's only number 2. And of the original After Archer podcast lineup, you're the only one that hasn't appeared on New Writer podcast. That's why it seems like more.
Oh, maybe. So this week we're going to be talking about the future of reading, or reading in the future, and maybe some of the ways that reading is changing with technology. Before we do that, we'll start with something cool. I think John had something cool this week. Go ahead, John.
Oh well, thanks. I got my series, the Jenkins Cycle, got a bunch of new book covers. The other ones were kind of thread worn or whatever. The first book looked like it was a karate book, and I lost a lot of sleep over that. So I shelled out the money, and I got the covers redesigned. Go take a look. If you've already bought it, take a look anyway and see what you're missing. The only other thing I got that's cool, I guess, is that I'm starting to get beta feedback on this post-apocalyptic book that I wrote. It was a little bit mixed at first. I wasn't getting too positive results from some folks, and then suddenly a couple of different betas came back saying, "Oh my God, can I have another?" And I'm just like, wow. So I'm feeling really, really good about that. They loved all the parts I was hoping that they would love, and they had some realistic criticism that came back for some parts that I was a little bit skeptical about myself. And good news is those are easy things to fix. So I'm a happy John L. Monk today. Thank you.
That's good.
I really like the new covers, by the way. I think they're awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Did you do the box set too yet? I've seen the individuals. I didn't notice if you redid the box set as well.
No, but I mean, it's going to come. She's working on getting me a 2D cover and a 3D cover because some sites require one or the other. Some look better than the others. And I'm also getting some ad copy for Facebook ads because my first book is like rank a gazillion right now because it hasn't really moved. It was in perma-free for so long. So I'm getting some Facebook ads. I'm getting paperbacks. I got the audiobook coming out any week now, so lots of good, happy things.
Okay. So let's, Matt, did you have anything cool? You don't have anything cool going on.
No.
Neither do I. I guess my something cool can wait until I get back from the summit next week, which is going to be very cool.
That is going to be cool. I'm jealous.
Me too.
That's good. That's why I'm going. So let's do our reading of the week roundtable. And Matt, I think you said you have actually managed to get some reading done lately. What have you been reading?
I finished a book called Half-Made Girls over the weekend. It's a contemporary fantasy that takes place in Pitchfork County, Missouri. It's kind of very dark and gritty. I really enjoyed it. I picked up the second book in the series this morning, and we'll start that. And then I've read a whole bunch of writing books in the last couple of months, but not going to count any of those.
Who was that book by?
I actually looked it up before the show so that I could remember. It is Sam Witt.
That name rings a bell.
There's 3 books in the series, and then 2 related novellas that are a different character but tied into the series. So,
okay.
I always am on the lookout for other urban fantasy, contemporary fantasy that takes place in Missouri. So,
you and me both. Yeah.
So I'll run through mine. I've finished the third and final book in Marcus Saki's Brilliance trilogy. That's Written in Fire, and absolutely loved this series. So I recently, just before this, I think I had finished reading Brandon Sanderson's Reckoners trilogy, and was sorely disappointed by the last third of the last book. Everything kind of fell apart. So, that's always kind of a worry when you're reading a series, and but this one was just, I absolutely loved it. So the second book kind of ends with everything in flux. Nothing's really been tied up. Third book picks up where that one left off, and just brings everything to a head and wraps it all up. Not in a completely neat and tidy, perfect little bow, which is also really cool. That it is kind of left open, but in a way that's really interesting and neat. And I had seen something, I think, on his bio, or that maybe this book has been picked up for. I want to say a television series, but I could be wrong. It might be a movie. But either way, it was action-packed, fast thriller. I just loved this series.
It's awesome.
Would highly recommend.
It's on my list.
Good. Then what about you, John? What have you been reading?
Oh, okay. I other than reading my own crap over and over again, because I've got editing coming up on April 1st. Other than that, I've been trying to read. I've been trying to read Salem's Lot. A dog just died, and I'm pretty sure it's a vampire, because you know how much they hate dogs. But man, it is just, if I have to read about yet another baggage clerk or real estate agent or somebody else and their bad day, I mean, when does it start? Has anybody here read it?
Years ago, like years and years ago, and it's not one that stands out for me as being like a favorite of mine. I don't honestly remember very much about it.
Okay. The other thing I've been reading is Iterate and Optimize. And I've been iterating and optimizing everywhere, So it's awesome. Now I'm only about, I guess I'm like 40% through. I love that first. I didn't like the first part just because it's like the touchy-feely stuff. And, that's the kind of stuff, it's like it's for you or it's not for you. It's not their fault. Some people love that. And then I hit that part where it was like about their company, and now they're getting into like just sort of the strategies and stuff that they use for self-publishing. And I already kind of know all of them because I listen to the show, but I like them, and I like how it's good to read. So that's
cool.
it.
And speaking of podcasts, since we were talking about it before the show, let me bring it up here so I can mention it because we like to talk about other shows. I've been saying I'm a huge fan of the Story Grid podcast with Sean Coyne and Tim Grahl. So there's a new podcast out called the Self-Publishing Formula Podcast, and that's they're 4 or 5 episodes in. Just started about a month ago, and that's with Mark Dawson and a guy named James Blatch. So for anyone who's looking for some new self-publishing podcasts to listen to, that one seems like it might be a good one.
Yeah.
And with that, we can move on to our topic, which Michael came up with and then bailed on the podcast. So if we screw it up, it's his fault. He thought it might be interesting to talk about reading in the future, or the future of reading, which I, for some reason, felt like we had already done. But if we did, it was a long time ago. Yeah. I didn't hear what you said, John.
I said that was in the past.
No.
We are in the future now.
So reading in the future, we're kind of already there, in a sense. Compared to go ahead.
I've been thinking about this all day today, and one of the things I thought was like the basic idea of if you count a book as like a message, a form of storing written text, it hasn't really changed shape in the last like 2,000 years, and I don't really see it changing shape all that much in the next 2,000 years.
It's still square.
Yeah. Well, it's text on a page. If it's a digital page or a vellum, it's all the same, really. I don't think that part's going to change. I think the nature of story is going to be what changes more than...
So I think what we're saying is that the medium, or the like storytelling, might change. Not how we tell stories, but sort of the medium, right? We've got audiobooks now, but I mean, audiobooks aren't really anything new. We've always had, not always, but we've had books on tape, books on CD, for a long time.
Well, I mean, even if you talk about going back before the book, you had bards. You had people just telling stories. I think the big change is going to be, and I hear people talk about transmedia a lot, which I think is very short-sighted thinking. That's the same story in multiple different mediums or media. I think it's going to be intermedia. You're going to be reading a book and then have a video right there in the middle of the page.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I can
you
see
do
that.
see those kinds of things. I think have already been done. Like actually, in the Marcus Seiki books that I was just reading, like so he tells the story, but throughout each book, in between chapters, there will be like a flyer that's been posted by the government, or a transcript from a news program, or like so. There's these little snippets that you could easily, with the right technology, replace with a little video. There's somebody, I can't remember the name of the company, that's doing that audio where it's not an audio book, but while you're reading, it kind of times what you're reading, and like
Book
when you
tracks.
when you read the part that he slammed the car door, you'll hear in your ears the car door slam, and it somehow can sort of time how you're reading it, and like when the bullets start flying, you get to hear it happening, which I think would be kind of distracting, extremely distracting, but it would be really interesting. It'd be cool to try out.
Well, I think I've been playing this MMO lately called The Secret World, and it's such like you play most MMOs. You play the game, you fight the monsters, but this one like has investigation missions, and it has a built-in browser because they have alternate reality websites set up. So like if you want to solve this quest, you have to go search onto this website for this company that doesn't really exist and dig down into their human resources policies.
Now you mean a real life website?
Yes, like
Okay.
it's on. Yeah, like there's a quest where you have to find a YouTube video of
Okay.
a professor giving a speech, that sort of thing. And I think video games have been starting to embrace that, and television has been starting to embrace that alternate reality game stuff. And I think books are going to be one of the media that takes that to a new level.
Yeah, you see that with TV shows too, like you said. I think even where they just have webisodes, that ways of adding to the story, I guess.
Yeah, I hate it. I hate the Fear of the Walking Dead's webisode. Have you been watching that one?
No, I don't. I watched about the first half of the first episode of Fear the. I love The Walking Dead. I
Yeah.
could not get through the first episode of Fear the Walking Dead. It just seemed kind of pointless.
It's a bit slow, and I'm
Yeah.
sticking with it because I just like I trust AMC and I like the topic. But they have this webisode thing. It's like a minute, and they show these people on an airplane, and like there's a zombie in their midst, kind of thing. They have to kind of react to it. And they've been doing it for 2 seasons now. And it's driving me up the friggin' wall. So, as far as the whole changing of the media and the way we consume it and stuff, I think it's more like akin to idiocracy. Where they only look at people farting, and they're aspiring to not only look at people farting and enjoy that, but to know who's farting. That's the important thing. That'll be the elevation of their media. So
So you're talking about the dumbing down of story, which I think what you were.
yeah, I mean, think about it. Like, okay, this is a book. This is a show about books, but I always in my mind, I think of like Master and Commander. That movie is like very historical, and a lot of people think it's boring. I love it. I watched it like 20 times, and I don't think they'll ever make a movie like that again. Not with that kind of budget, because people, it's all LOL, ROFL, SMH, hashtag, Tweety Bird this and tweet that, and Facebook, and and it's everything. The culture is so incredibly fragmented. I think all those things I just said, all those little hashtaggy things or whatever, I think it's going to come with its own grammar one day. And you're going to like, oh, you didn't winky emoticon properly in your novel, typo.
I would argue that it already has its own grammar now, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
It's just a thing, I know.
Syntax. Yes, a syntax is constantly evolving,
Mm-hmm.
and really, I hear this comment a lot from my father, where he talks about you read Civil War journals and people spoke so super eloquently, and nowadays people are lol and cats, and I think when you get to cherry pick what you want to read from history, when you're only picking the best examples, then you're collapsing a bit of culture there. But I do know that there are some Japanese experimental writers who are doing things like Twitter books, where a book is told entirely in 140 character pieces, and that's can be taking that same thing and turning it into an art. So
We call
God,
that a paragraph at my house. So
I was reading something about the books that have been written in Pi, where each word is sort of the next in the sequence of. So the first word is 3 letters long. The second word is 14159, and people have written entire books in Pi, which I can't imagine. It's got to be extremely difficult. I wonder how they actually read. And I could, until we already have a lot of sort of the proliferation, good lord, of technology. But how annoying would it be to be on an airplane reading your book, and you get to a point in the book where it says, to find out what happens next, click here to watch the video, and you're like, well, shit, like I got 7 hours left in my flight. I don't want to keep reading until I see the video, right? Like that stuff will be cool, but only if it works. If it doesn't take you out of the story, right? If you're like, oh, I got to put the damn book now, go upstairs, log into the laptop, go to YouTube, and watch this stupid video.
right.
If you could embed that stuff right into the book itself, right?
Yeah.
So I agree, using the transmedia or the cross-platform or whatever, you still want to keep it all in the same device, in the same file, if at all possible.
I agree with that. I'll say I personally will embrace any technology that makes the absorption of information more efficient for me. So I like audiobooks because I can listen to them very quickly. I like ebooks because I can usually read through them very quickly. So I'm just waiting for the day that I can implant a book straight into my brain and take 5 seconds to just absorb all of that knowledge.
And then delete it if it was crap. Which reminds me, we'll be talking about Midshipman's Hope in a couple weeks. It's our book of the month. I don't know why I thought of that, but have you read Midshipman's Hope, Matt? Just curious.
I have not.
Okay.
I had not even heard about it until you guys started talking about it as the book of the month, and so I've put it on my list. But honestly, I went on a book buying like deluge in November or December and bought like 600 ebooks, and I'd like to read most of them before I move on to picking up more stuff.
That's tough, eh? I do the same thing. I'll like clean out a bunch. I bought these books 8 months ago and I haven't read them yet. I'm just gonna clean off the Kindle, start fresh, download the 1 or 2 books that I want to read right now, and then a month or 2 later you're full up again.
Yeah, especially since I managed to pick up a bunch of first in series, and now I'm like, well, I've got to read the whole series now.
Right. Oh, by the way, I feel kind of bad because I brought up the Master and Commanders thing, and this is a show on books. So while you guys were talking, yeah, it was also like it was. I read the whole series, okay, and you know what? That's actually a great point. I make my own point, but with the books. But I think about like books like Dune, and then I turn around and I think about like the Kindle Gold Rush books, where they pump out a book. I don't know. I got a lot of friends who are pumping out a book a month now. So, but you know what I mean. I don't think Dune. I can't imagine Dune took him a month. Dune. So.
But I also think that there's the Master and Commander, but then you can say some other things are popcorn or whatever, but Stephen King is supposed to be popcorn, and you're having a hell of a time getting through Salem's Lot.
True.
A lot of, and I think one of the problems I think maybe too with the in quote good movies is like The Revenant. That to me, I haven't seen it. I never will because it's like 3 hours long or something. And those kinds of movies just look to me like they were purely just made so that somebody could win an Oscar. There's no art. Doesn't seem like there's any real love or art to it. Maybe there is. I could be wrong, but I'm trying to think of the last. I don't know what again in quotes, good movie that has come out that was, I don't watch nearly as many movies as I used to.
And I think there's a difference here between like I like Master and Commander. I thought it was an awesome movie. I'm not gonna say that it was the movie equivalent of a literary, there is a type of book out there, literary books in general, that are purely written to indulge the author. Like, that's the whole point of the book, is to indulge the author's need to make art from prose. And there are movies out there that are the exact same equivalent, and I think that's what kind of stuff that Patrick is talking about. And I don't think Master and Commander was one of them, but I definitely see your point. And I think one thing to remember in anything is the huge variety of taste that comes around in the world. See, like, I personally have gotten to the point where I used to read doorstop epic fantasy books, and now when I pick up one of these books, I'm like, get to the point. Like, Tolkien takes 900 pages to start telling a story, and I'm like, this story, The Lord of the Rings, is, in the paperback edition I own, from The Hobbit through the end of the books, is like 3,700 pages, and really it's a 100-page story. And I think that's taste is a big part of that.
Yeah, absolutely, because I would agree that Dune is considered a good book, but I've never been able to get through it. Dry, tedious, but I think for the same reasons that I don't like Game of Thrones. People love their Game of Thrones and their Lord of the Rings. I can't stand Lord of the Rings for all the same reasons. Too many people off doing too many different things, too much exposition. But, people love that stuff, and, good for them. I just,
I think if we're talking about, like, ideal future of print media, maybe in the future we'll have a book that can expand itself. So, like, the writer can write his 185,000 word book, and maybe I could read the compressed version that's automatically, 40,000 words.
You need like a slider that goes from like exposition through story or like plot or whatever, and you can like, I want to move the slider up. I want more, I want to see 18 pages to describe this tree like Tolkien would do, versus, on the other end to say maybe I want like the 140 character James Patterson chapters that's just like, just get to the point.
Yeah, automatic abridging. That's something I want ebooks to do in the future.
There you go.
Because sometimes I do want to read 35 pages on the wood grain of a door, and sometimes I just want to get the story done.
That's actually I think an interesting, that'd be a cool idea. I only want the dialogue, with the bare bones of the story or whatever.
I like adverbs as a writer. I like them. I like adverbs and adjectives, and I know a lot of people say that's flowery and you shouldn't do it. That never bothers me as a reader, but maybe one of my readers should be able to click a button that just immediately eliminates all adjectives and adverbs from my writing. And they can be like, I don't need to know that that's purple.
Well, how about I don't know if you just said it actually, but the audiobooks, like, you listen to them and they say he said, she said all the time. You don't need that if you've got female voices and male voices and things like that. That actually would just really enhance the experience.
Do they do that? I've never listened to an audiobook with like multiple narrators. Do they have like the female voice speaks and then the regular narrator says he said?
Some do.
I can see that being exceptionally annoying.
And at the same time, though, there are some dramatic interpretations, is what I think they're usually referred to on Audible anyway, where it's just a cast performing a script based on the book.
I would like to hear one of those, like the old, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy type sort of radio show, or like, Lone Ranger, all those old radio shows.
So the future is the past with radio. It's funny, yeah, that we go back and redo that.
I think so, but I think at the same time, like, I think the reason podcasts are so popular is because of the storage medium and transfer sizes. So as bandwidth becomes more available, you're going to see more video pick up again.
Do you think it's going to be very long before, especially with audiobooks and maybe with print, that we're going to hear, like, you're listening to an audiobook of Harry Potter or something, and at the end of chapter 3, you get to hear J.K. Rowling say, this book is brought to you by Coca-Cola.
No, I
Drink
hope so.
Coke or smoke Marlboro cigarettes for that smooth. You know,
Mhm.
That would be awesome.
hey
I would love
kids,
that.
if you want to be cool, smoke Marlboros.
Yeah, if Marlboro wants to sponsor my audiobooks so that they'll get made, I will sell my soul. I do think podcast books are going to become a bigger thing. We already have obviously Audible, but I think you're going to have that's going to become more of a thing.
I've seen a
And
couple podcasted books that were done in, 10 episodes, and each episode is like 15 minutes, and it's probably just the author just reading
yeah.
their book.
And I think that as those become more popular, yes, each of those is going to end with this podcast is brought to you by Audible. Visit Audible, blah 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 blah. And yeah, you're going to see those same sponsors that sponsor all podcasts are going to pop up into those, and you're going to see these books that are sponsored that way.
Hmm.
But yeah, I am not against the idea of product placement in writing. As a writer
Would you
or a
write it
reader.
into the book?
Yeah, see, I loved the television show Chuck. And the only reason that show got to stay on the air is because of the money Subway gave them for their product placement ads. And so, like, they just completely came out. They would stop in the middle of the show and be like, and now for this Subway sandwich is going to make everything better. And I would be totally okay if I knew that the reason the product was being made was because of the product placement. I'm okay with supporting that.
Yeah, I've said that before, actually. Like, I don't understand why they aren't doing this more. Like, if HBO is so worried about people downloading Game of Thrones, because they do, and they're afraid they're going to lose money for it. Like, I would have no problem if, when I was watching a show like that, because they used to do it back in the day, right? Where they'd stop in the middle, and Tyrion Lannister or whatever, steps up breaks the fourth wall for a second, and I like to use, whatever.
I would have a huge problem with that. It'd be the most awful thing ever.
I would have a problem with that with Game of Thrones because I don't like it when they break the fourth wall to do it, unless that show has that feel to it already. That tone's already there, like
Gary Shandling.
Yeah.
The old show.
But like,
But
I don't mind.
wouldn't it be like, because they could, like, they're on the battlefield, and the camera can pan across, and all of a sudden, like, you see that they're really just in the studio, and like a couple of them can just sit on the couch and talk about the benefits of using, and then they can walk back onto the battlefield. No?
Here's the thing: if they could figure out how to keep it in world, so like, I know in Game of Thrones in the books, I haven't watched the TV show. In the books, we've got guys like vendors marching down the street shouting like, eat my hot pie or eat my baked bread. And if one guy was like, Oscar Mayer hot dogs, so, if it fit into the narrative without ruining the tone.
That's terrible. How about this? They have a sword in the show, and it's got like dragons on it and stuff. It's very, very, you know what it is. And then, like, you go to their website and they sell the sword. There you go.
But so there is definitely a way to do it where then, because it's so hard for them to get advertising, first of all, not to get it, but for people to actually see it, because who actually sits through the bloody commercials, right? They could still make their episodes available, like the day it's available, it's up online, and burnt right into the file, or when you're streaming it, you get those, like a real commercial, right? And they can make that stuff so it's unskippable, but I don't think people would mind if they're getting that content for free, right? The advertiser's paying for it. I'm surprised that more TV shows haven't done that, to start pulling further and further away from cable, because I think, just based on people I talk to at work and things like that, less and less people, everyone's using the Android boxes or the all these other means of getting their content.
I don't have television. I only watch what streams through the internet.
Yep.
Let me see. I had, before we go, I had some fanciful things about the future of reading that I thought I'd throw out there and you guys could laugh at. I have, how like right now we have AIs that are competing against humans to play chess and things like that, or that Chinese strategy game.
Go.
Go. That's right. I see like kind of a future where maybe the AI test is more of like a Turing test. Which AI is able to write the most believable and even compelling story, with all the nuances of culture and all that stuff.
You're just reminding me of that old Simpsons bit where Mr. Burns has like all the monkeys in the room, like a million monkeys on a million computers, and he pulls the piece of paper out of the typewriter, and he's like, "It was the best of times. It was the blurst of times." It's like,
That's right. You got close.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say I hope that AI taking over the writing genre or writing industry happens after we no longer have like a consumer society, when we have replicators, because I like being a writer and I don't think I can compete with robots. Once robots master something, they do it better than people, and I'd rather not be that industry yet.
I just speculated. I really don't think it's going to be anything that'll happen anytime soon. And much like real diamonds versus factory-made diamonds, there are going to be people who want the real diamonds. You know what I mean?
Yeah. See, I'm not one of those. I'm not anti-Android. I like the idea of AI. Human brain, put me in a robot body. Yeah. Upgrades all the way.
A little too much, if you ask me. Yeah, I liked Ex Machina. I didn't love it like you did.
I'm a Ray Kurzweil kind of futurist, so.
Okay.
I did see when I was researching for today, I saw something I thought was really cool, and I guess they've been around for a while, and I had never heard of them. Was a Braille e-reader. That was pretty awesome that technology is fully formed now and available.
So does that work the same way as sort of the old keyboards, where it's just kind of chicka 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 chicka, like the little things are popping up from underneath?
No, it's like an e-reader with e-ink, but it is textured, so the e-ink raises up a bumper so that you run your hand across it. But it looks, you couldn't, if the screen was flat, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between an old Kindle and the Braille e-readers.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, that's right.
I wonder if they did that in response to like the Justice Department or somebody, the government in the United States, coming down on Amazon for trying to do textbooks because, with like ebooks, because people who are blind wouldn't be able to sort of benefit from them.
Well, you could listen to them.
Well, maybe
I use the text-to-voice feature on my Kindle Fire all the time, so that's not a good argument. I listen to books that aren't meant to be audiobooks.
I wish I could, but I don't know if it's because it's Android or what, but none of my Kindle apps have the ability to do that.
It can only be done on the Kindle Fire, and I think the newer versions might even have gotten rid of it, which is why I haven't upgraded yet.
Which is too bad, because I would love to be able to just, without having to buy the audiobook, just listen to the robot, read it to me.
It took a little getting used to, but now that I'm used to it, like listening to normal audiobooks almost feels odd.
What else, John? You said you had a couple things?
Well, you guys spawned an idea in my head, and I thought maybe like, comic books, they have a little bit of text and they have a picture. I can almost imagine, expanding one or the other and having it so that each panel just bursts into animation, and something's happening. But only to a certain extent, and then you move to the next panel, and that bursts into animation.
Well, I think they did something similar to that with when Smallville was on the air. It was webisodes for the other members of the Justice League that were like motion comics, and it was like a comic, but it would slide the image, like so the Green Arrow would like turn towards the camera.
Oh, okay.
And I thought those were awesome.
I could see that being like very easy for them to do. Might make the comics cost a little bit more. And
here's one that's more like kind of like the future of indie publishing or even any kind of publishing. Imagine you have like computers that are, right now we click around and point and click to kind of make our pictures, right? With like what do you call that? Like GIMP or something like that. But imagine if you could just sort of speak into your computer and just say, 2 people in a room, it's a cafe, the guy's sitting down, dialogue, boom, 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 shocked expression on the woman's face, and like basically you could just sort of say it, and the stick figure animations are all doing all the work, and then you go back for another layer and you add in like the clothing and emotion and some music and things like that, and you can do it all verbally, and people can start making their own independent movies, without cameras and things like that.
I think that's probably closer than anything else we talked about tonight, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, you've already got the website where you create the script and the robots read it to each
Mhm.
other with the little teddy bear men. But I
Right.
think artificial voices in general are getting better. They're way better than they were 5 years ago, and automatic rendering is getting better. So
Well, and
once the tool,
not just the voices, I think you mean for speaking, but also just the voice recognition, like with Alexa and with Siri and all that, so that you can say to the computer, two people sitting at a table, and it doesn't mishear you and give you, Hitler flying a helicopter or something.
Hitler. Everything comes back to Hitler on the internet, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
is that Godwin's law?
Somebody's law.
Yeah, I believe that
It's
is Godwin's
Hitler's law.
So Patrick just lost the conversation then.
Yep.
Yeah. Because he's Hitler.
So, we as usual, I think we kind of went off the rails on the topic, but that's half the fun. So, any other thoughts on the future of reading? No. Matt, you look like you had something you wanted to say.
I could honestly talk about futurism for hours and hours, so I don't want to get you off down another rabbit hole.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming, though.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for having me anytime.
Especially on short notice. I'm not sure how many times PT has been on, but I think you've got a couple more episodes to go before you overcome.
Well, feel free to invite me whenever so that I can break that record. I'm a big believer in having the biggest numbers. Makes me feel proud of myself, especially when it's arbitrary and doesn't have much meaning.
And it's against PT. So, quick note for anyone who checks out the show live. Next week, we will be recording a day early. We'll be on Monday instead of Tuesday, same time, 8 o'clock Eastern, because I will be traveling on Tuesday. So we will talk to you then. And in the meantime, have a great week of reading, and we will talk to you all soon. Have a good night, guys.
See ya.
Night.